But we were in a group, and this is kind of the big thing. We were in a group, and what I remember is crying because there was a lot of emotions going through there, and talking about the fact that I felt like a fraud with people. Like people might like me or say they like me or act like they like me, and I would say, yeah, but if you really knew me. And
Yeah,
I remember that moment. If ever,
I
and
do too. I can tell you from my end. So that's like my first meeting on it, and I had told my staff, I got an office, but it's got a glass door, and I had been told them, hey, I'm quitting drinking, I'm doing this thing.
hey, welcome to the latest episode of the Say Goodbye and Imagine podcast. And this week I have a friend of mine who I met. I have never met in person, but we have known each other for 5 years. We met in an online group to quit drinking. And we both started within, Steve, I figured it out, it's 5 days from each other. Um, and one of the reasons that we're connecting on this podcast today, well, there's a couple, but we reminded each other at our 5 year mark that we said something to each other or admitted something to each other in a group um, session that really connected us. And I said, wow, that'd be a great reason for a podcast. And so here Steve is to talk about it. Before we get started, though, I wanted to ask you that if you're enjoying this podcast, please like it, follow it, and share it with others so that other people can find out. That there's a better life, that there's a better way, that you can say goodbye and imagine a different life, which is definitely Steve's story. So, with that said, welcome, Steve. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story with
Hi,
everyone.
Roseanne, and thank you for having me.
Hey, I'm going to let you share kind of the moment that we connected.
Okay.
I can add on to it of where I was feeling, but the background is we were in, well, no, let's step back a little. Who are you? What do you do in life? I know that you recently retired, but tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about who you are, who you're married, you have children, where you live, what you did for a
Yeah.
living, all that stuff.
So
Let's
I live in Elk Grove, which is near Sacramento. I am 55. I worked 30 years in the wastewater field. I worked for a local government in the Bay Area, and I retired last August 11th. The stars aligned. The way the pension works out is 55 is a good time to go. And on my 55th birthday, that was the last day of a pay period. Always convenient for the folks in finance. So um, I had been planning for it, hired my replacement. At the time I hired her, I was either going to promote up to division manager uh, or retire. And so I promised her one way or another, you're going to have my job. I'm either going to promote up and stay. Obviously, I decided to go retire. So I kept my word to her and happily passed the baton to her because, when you work for so long and run these programs, even though you get tired of working on this stuff, you have other staff working for you, you want to make sure it carries on. So I was happy I was able to recruit her and give it all to her.
Let's go back just to where, your drinking story, because we always all have one. When did you start? When did it become a problem? And why did you stop?
When did like I first start
When did
drinking?
you first start drinking and when did
Oh,
you
probably like a little bit end of my senior year in high school.
so like me?
So 17 going on 18. And then through college and and I'd always been the kind of guy that could go big. I wasn't a one or two guy. Um, I stopped at different points in my life. Like with my first wife, every time she was pregnant with one of our children, I tried to do something different. You put on the weight in college, so went, okay, my friends were teasing me. I'm like, okay, when this baby's born and you see me again, because I was a skinny guy in high school. I was a
Mhm.
runt, and then you get over 200 pounds, and I don't know. I think some people find joy in that. you know, oh, you're big now. Yeah, thanks for noticing.
Well,
Something
I
I
just
was
want to
self-conscious.
stop you because quitting drinking, you lost 60 pounds, and I saw the before picture, and it wasn't stunning, Steve. I'm just gonna say.
Yeah, no, I did like, and and I went all in, and I was doing a healthy eating thing simultaneously. I signed up for some online thing, calorie counting thing, and so I was like, so that's why I was well, quitting drinking alone takes a lot off, and plus doing that, that's why I was so rapid. And then I got on the bike. So so every time she was pregnant with one of our children, I was like, trying to lose weight. One time I was switching jobs, and one time was a marathon. I got into running, and with endurance stuff like that. I fit me. I cannot drink. Like I did not drink for a year during that training thing. It would hurt me on the run, and it would hurt me in my mind if I had a beer and I'm gonna go run 8 miles. I'm like I shouldn't have that beer. I'm tired. It threw in my
So
confidence. So
you
I
were
wouldn't.
an athlete, you were thin, you would
Yeah,
drink, and then occasionally, because you're an athlete, you train for a marathon, quit. You train
yeah.
for a cycling
So I
event,
did.
quit.
So I ran a marathon at 28. Completely did not drink anything for over a year, and then the thing with the marathon, you reach the goal, and then I slipped back into this thing. Hey, I could, yeah, this and that, and then got away from the running. And then I did another marathon at 32. Same thing. Over a year alcohol free. Went training for it. Um, then I got divorced during that first year of so that was about 2 years alcohol free because I finished the marathon. We got divorced, started the divorce there, and there was a lot going on. And um, I said I should keep up this not drinking thing. See, you always kind of know, I mean, I knew it was an
That's
issue.
impressive because I drink
And
more.
then
I
and then
drink.
I went back. Then I slowly went back, and then just different periods of trying to do the same thing, of trying to keep it down and this or that. And then when we got near the end, I had a long commute. Um, I drive 40 miles, get on a train um, for like another 55, and then I would take the bike and ride 3 miles. So Big Steve got I had met people into cycling, and I'd done that way back, like just a little bit when I was like in eighth grade, ninth grade, got into riding a little bit. So I saw them with the road bikes and started talking to them, and I'm like, all right, I got one. It's funny. I tell you this story because when I first got the bike, I was breaking spokes
Oh, wow.
because it was like my weight. And some of the guys would tease me, and I'm like, shut up. And I would go, you know, just when you're alone with your thoughts, I'm like, man, these guys don't know who the heck I am.
Hmm.
I mean, I've ran 2 marathons. I'm like, yeah, that was a long time ago. You're big Steve now, Um, so that commute was horrible. My job was kind of like 5 years away from retiring. Um, all everybody that hired me was like, 5 or 6 years older, so they were leaving. The city was changing, you know, and I just started that self-medicating because commute's horrible. And then looking forward to the end of the day, I would ride. Yeah, there was a bar by there, get like a shot or two and a beer. Or if I wasn't going there, I'd go to the convenience store, liquor store, get like, a little shot of vodka and a strong IPA on the train. And then, this, I'm gonna be honest with you, this stupid things we do. Then I would come home, and I didn't want my wife to like smell alcohol on me. Like I drank before I came. So then I would pour a drink immediately when I came home,
Hmm.
and then have a couple, and then that night. And it started going from, it's started like, hey, I'm like a couple days a week to I'm doing this every day a week. on the weekend, and then it was finally uh it was one of my off Fridays, and I had drank all day, and she came home, and I'm, obviously impaired, and it was the confrontation. What the hell's going on? You're not the guy I married.
And okay, I wanted to just stop right there and just share that this is a big thing, that what you're describing is stealing who you are, right? You used to
Yeah.
be a biker, you used to have integrity with your spouse, right? And
Yeah.
slowly but surely you're losing that integrity, you're losing yourself, you're losing your health. So I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. So, I saw how much she was dealing with. She, broke down crying, and
I'm sorry.
I just get choked up telling the story because you see the hurt you're having on someone else. And so that was a Friday, and that was a long weekend. You talk about the anxiety that, and the drinking was causing anxiety. It was the any relief factor. It was just so. I mean, I did not sleep that weekend, and just you know, praying to God, just let me sleep for a couple hours. Let me have 2 hours of peace because we beat ourselves up. I mean, at least I do. I wasn't happy with who I was and all that stuff. And I said, I'm gonna do something. And I started searching online, and it was like, I remember that Monday. I went in, so Monday locked down. And I had things happen for a reason. Uh I had drove at my lunchtime today. I'm like, oh, I'll go to an AA meeting. I really don't want to do this. That's just, ugh. I drove. It was some old building, and they had a sign on the door, um, closed because of COVID and all this stuff. I went back to my office, went back to searching online, and I saw the challenge, this 30-day challenge, and I'm like, I joined that and got the videos and started that day. And then after that 30 days, I'm like, okay, I'm doing good and this or that, but I hadn't made I desperately wanted this to be permanent. And I'm like, what's going to be different this time? You've done this before.
Hmm.
You've done it for, like I explained earlier. I'm like, I got to do something different. And so I went into that 90-day thing. I didn't care how much it cost. They couldn't take my money quick enough. Um, And I remember sitting in my office the day I was signing up for that, and the credit card wouldn't go through. It's like 5:30. I'm like, I don't know. We got it through. I was just so anxious to take that next step, and things I didn't want to do because I knew it was going to be get on with a group and talk about things, and that's not my. I was like, oh, I don't want to do that, but I don't want to continue on the path that I was doing more. I got to do something different. Um, Best decision of my life. I met you
Best,
like one of the,
yeah, best money spent, right? I feel like
yeah,
it wasn't the cheapest program, but
no, it
I
was,
tell people that they we're spending the money on the alcohol ruining our life. When we're ready, which you were and I was, when we're ready to see something different, and we believe in the possibility, then we will
yeah,
invest in ourselves to try and see it. So
yeah. So
good on
I
you,
have,
good on me. Yeah.
yes, yes,
What was the point? That point was that you had had enough was when your wife found you were found out.
yeah, that was it, because she told me, I've even talked to my dad about this, and her dad has, passed away. So I knew that was like, probably a year or two before we had this confrontation. And I'm like, oh man, he's gone. What did he think of me? He had ALS and couldn't communicate at the end. Uh, and you get embarrassed of yourself, that she's got to go talk to her father about this. And she was taking care of like I said, he had ALS parents, and he was a caregiver to her mom who was disabled from a stroke. And I'm like, and
Did
you're
she
adding,
did she give you an ultimatum?
no,
Mm.
that's the beauty of her. it was just it wasn't like angry. It wasn't, I say confrontation, it might be and I can't think of a better word right now for it, because it was just genuine concern about me, and I wasn't the guy she married. Um,
Mm.
and it's funny because when we started dating, dating is that's the interview. Courting and the dating, you're on your best behavior. And again, that was another throttling the drinking downtime. I had lost some weight. I was running then, could do about 8 to 10 mile run. Because one of our first dates was a hiking thing with her friends, and I was like, I later told her, I'm so glad I was running, because I don't know, I wouldn't have been able to finish that hike. It was tough. Um, so I was in that, hey, I'm going to put my best foot forward. I knew what my best foot forward was, not drinking a lot. And so it was a down period. And then we got married. And then you slowly, you know,
You
my whole
slowly
life,
lose yourself. Yeah.
yeah, it goes,
I do want to transition to this moment for us
okay. Yeah.
inside the coaching program. But your story is, well, I don't want to say a beautiful one, but it's a beautiful testimony, right? Of what happens to kind of all of us. We were born with gifts and joy, and we were just born with potential, and then we believe that this substance is going to help us, and what it does is, I like to say, steal, kills, and destroys. And it sounds like it had done that. You had gained 60 pounds. You had disappointed your wife. You didn't know who you were. You were talking to people like, yeah, apparently you don't know who I used to be.
Yeah.
But then we both make this decision, which, by the way, was different than other people's decision during COVID. We're like, we got to do something. And unfortunately, a lot of people got trapped in the stress of it all and started drinking more. I'm grateful that we made a different choice. But we were in a group, and this is kind of the big thing. We were in a group, and what I remember is crying because there was a lot of emotions going through there, and talking about the fact that I felt like a fraud with people. Like, people might like me or say they like me or act like they like me. And I would say, yeah, but if you really knew me. And
Yeah.
I remember that moment.
I
And
do too. I can tell you from my end. So that's like my first meeting on it, and I had told my staff, I got an office, but it's got a glass door, and I had been told them, hey, I'm quitting drinking, I'm doing this thing, so I'm going to be on these Zoom meetings, at least once a week, and so I got my door shut. It's either the first one or the second one, not much like that, when this moment happened, and completely out of my comfort zone. And again, desperate times call for desperate measures. I'm like, I'm doing this. I'm like, ugh, I can't wait till this hour's over. Introduced me to the group, and we're talking, and I'm like, oh, okay. Um, yeah, I don't feel comfortable, you know. And then you started saying what you just said, and I remember you going, I don't think people would really like me. And I'm like, first of all, don't cry, lady.
yes, cry lady.
I know. I'm like, oh, she's crying, and I'm like, oh, that's exactly how I feel. And I'm like, okay, the key to this is participation and interacting. So I'm like, I'm going to send her private message, and I said, hey, I feel exactly the same way you do, and this or that. And from that moment, we kind of clicked and bonded. I'm in my office and I'm crying, and I'm like, oh, I hope one of the guys don't walk by. And but that was the start of it, and that was it. I'm glad you remember it like I do, because it was a significant moment for me in that thing. Because like, oh, here's someone, I feel that way. She's crying, and it's exactly how I feel, and because you can't really hide it, but you can from people at work, unless you're drinking on the job. And oh, he's a good guy. He always comes through and this or that. But if you saw me pour up and drinking alone, what would you think?
And
You really
by the toilet, regretting what I said or what I did or what I put in my mouth.
exactly. And you mentioned we went a different way when a lot of people were COVID. So I'm at home, I'm still early on in this stuff, and you're looking at Facebook and stuff, and people are all like, "Hey, we're day drinking on a Tuesday." And I'm like, yeah, I can't do that. That was like, I can't do that. I can't do that. And now it's like, I don't want to do that.
Right.
So I'm so grateful that my wife confronted me when she did, because had I gone into COVID like that, totally different. I really feel that was a total crossroads in my life. Like I could have gone spiraled. I mean, the way things went at work could have got worse. So people got sent home. Uh, I had to be there every day. My boss, the division manager, was high risk. I didn't have a great relationship with her before. She's like a 60-year-old, very smart engineer. And it shifted so many things. I ended up being pretty much the on point person in charge of the division during the day. Um, and I started liking work.
I just remembered you started a pumpkin patch for people.
Yeah, so I could do what I
At
want.
work.
So there was like nothing to do. I mean, there was work to do. We had work to do. And I started riding the bike then at lunch. And then I said, I wanted to grow pumpkins. My wife's like, I have no room for that. I'm like, I'll do it at work. And I started clearing it. Our lab supervisor who's into gardening, what are you doing? I'm going to grow some pumpkins. Oh, can I help? Sure. And it just spread. And I don't know how big the plot was, but we grew like over 100 pumpkins, some up to 100 pounds. And we did it the next couple of years after that. So uh, ended up being charged with the division, then corresponding with my boss online, who she loved work. This lady loved her job, and she felt bad for not being there. She had respiratory stuff. She needed to be home. And it changed my relationship with her. Like
Oh,
during that, she retired during that. I ended up throwing, and she knew a lot of people didn't like her. And I kind of go, Helen, I get it now, seeing it from your perspective in the chair being responsible for everything. And I totally get it. And I'm like, you got to have a retirement party. I'll do it on Zoom. You got all these colleagues. Oh, she didn't want to have it because she didn't think people liked her. I go, people will come. And I hosted this online party for my boss that I didn't particularly care for before COVID. Had over 100 people online. She didn't know about the pumpkin patch. And I did a whole video. I said, so this is what I was doing while you weren't here and didn't know, and it
right.
was pretty funny. So that changed. I mean,
Well, it
and look,
sounds,
and I was too. But the other one thing, I was 260 pounds. I was not really working out like I should, not eating healthy. If I would have continued drinking, who knows if I'm here today? I got COVID at the end. I was taking the train with other people, so I was out there exposed. Um, I could have got COVID early, and I could have been one of those ones. And I said that because when we came
obesity.
back, they're like, "Oh, what happened to?" There was this big guy, 6'2", probably 300 pounds, and he would commute on the bike a little bit to his job. And I said, you know what? It's funny you guys ask. Not funny. I said, but that you ask. I said, I was wondering where he was at. And so I started looking him up. I said, he died. He died. I said on his thing, it says he passed away January 19th. And before COVID, he had just had, that's when I met him on the train. Him and his wife had just had a 2-year-old.
Mm,
And I'm like, I don't know if it was COVID, but it was during the lockdown. I mean, I didn't know the guy that well. It's just kind of like, friend slash acquaintance on the train. Um, well, he probably got COVID and died because early on, if you got hospitalized, it didn't work out too well for you.
exactly.
So it was
Well,
a good time to get healthy.
Steve, let me know, let me understand this. Hopefully, I know I don't say that anymore if you really knew me. One of the greatest things of having this freedom is to know that I'm not hiding a secret anymore, a big secret. I mean, are you okay
Yeah.
with that statement now? You confident
Oh
with?
yeah. I am. I was worried, I was gonna be honest with my staff because then when you go, "Hey, well, I don't want people to think I'm, you know, alcoholic, all the labels, all that stuff, or this or that." And I was like, you kind of like don't want people to know you're not drinking. I love being the person not drinking wherever I go. I'm not ashamed of that. It takes a lot of great strength to to make a change like that in your life. And then I just realized the people that really know me. If someone wants to think, oh, he must have been this real horrible
No,
dirtbag or
no,
something,
and
they can
that,
think what they want.
Steve, that's what we're both trying to do, right? You're on this podcast not because you're full of shame, because you're so proud of what you've been able to accomplish, because you want to share with other people, as do
Yeah,
I. This is about what's possible. It's not about what you did. It's about, addressing, James talked about attracting
yeah.
package
And,
poison.
and a little side story on that. One of my inspectors, when I told them, he told me subsequently after he saw, when you told us that, I go, this guy's quitting drinking. He's crazy. That, because he drank with me before at a conference.
Mm-hmm.
And Steve, I thought you were crazy and this or that. I tell you the story because I was going to have to put on because I knew his drinking. There were a couple, I was going to have to do whatever intervention that is. I've never had to do one in my life, as a boss. Um, and then he joined a program and, uh,
Oh,
and he's been alcohol free for just about, it'll be 4 years for him in September. And, he says I inspired him.
oh, yeah, and that's what we want to do. We don't.
And he, he needed to stop drinking. And that's a side thing. I'm like, I'm so glad I did that, shared it, and then I have a small staff. So I was really open with them, especially I got more open as we went further in that 90-day things. And I felt more comfortable talking about it. I felt more confident in myself. It's all building, building back who I am.
Building integrity, finding yourself, finding who you were created
Being
to
more
be.
liking myself. When
Yeah,
that was the thing, when you said that to me, when I look back, I go, yeah, I don't think other people will like me. I didn't like myself.
that's really what it is.
And that's really what it is. And I like myself now.
Yay. And that power of community, I do want to talk about that because the community you and I are in, we're still in a community and there may be 5 to 10 people in it, but we've got this little WhatsApp or no, it's a Marco Polo group.
Marco Polo.
Yeah, and we still engage in it. And if I would like the listeners to understand anything, it's really to understand that you're not alone, right? That people, when we share things, when we bring things into the light, that darkness can't exist when in light. And so when we're keeping things in our heads and battling this battle with ourselves, it's a dark place. And I really want to encourage people to share, to join a community because you'll find friends there, you know,
Yes. The
and
community thing is huge. And
yeah,
that was like what I told you at the beginning. Man, I don't want to be on this group thing. I just wanted this thing to go away. I wanted the magic bullet. I wanted to go away. I want to feel, no shortcuts, like I said. The community thing was really the biggest thing in there. And that's why I love that we still have a small group that we communicate with them. I love chatting with them, periodically. And just knowing other people. And then for me, that accountability, like, hey, we're doing this, we're all on a team, we're doing this. And then I joke with my coworker. I said, you know what? I'm glad you quit drinking because I'm never ever going to drink again, just out of spite for you. Because I think you might use it. I don't want to be like, oh, well, Steve did it. I'm doing it. Not that we're all individually responsible. It's just a joke. I go, but if I needed another little nugget to keep me on the path, just keeping you from drinking, that's it. Because I know how much you like to drink.
Well, and
Um,
Steve, the other thing was before we got on here, we talked about the fact that the biggest fear, I think, when we first quit is who our tribe is going to be. Who are we going to connect with? How are we going to lose our friends, right? And I think you've shared this a little. Some friends you don't lose because they really liked you for you. Your drinking buddies you might lose them, but that's only because they only cared about you because you drank with them, right?
yeah. I have some people that, like their work people that yeah, I'm still doing whatever, talk to them here and there, but I don't do anything with them because it's just drinking. And I do have a couple core friends. They still drink. I'm going to go on a fishing trip with them for like the fourth time now. The first one was not awkward, but it was just like, okay, how's this going to go for me? Because they're going to drink. Um, some nights they go overboard. Um, but I'm going again this May. I did, we're 5 days on a houseboat fishing every day, and I'm the only one that they got. Yeah, one guy will go big more than the others. The other two guys are kind of more moderate, and I just don't. And they know my story, and you know they've been my friends for a long time. Some are like lifelong friends, and it's just hey, their thing. They've seen the improvements in me, and they know how what I do. So it's not.
And they're not pressuring you or
But I'll
making.
say one thing, which is funny, and this bothered me in the beginning. Old stories, old drinking stories, when someone's telling the story, well, he did this or that. We were at a conference, and now I just sit back because I know it's coming. I've heard the story 100 times. You've got a couple too many in you, and like with one guy, I'm like, that's not even the story he's telling is not even about me. It's about this other guy we work with. I'm like, I don't care. You're not. But it did bother me in the beginning, those people telling those stories, and I'm just like, ugh. But
What
now it's
part,
just kind of like whatever,
what part was bothering you? The stories.
just because they're reminders of times where you know I drank too much, and
Oh,
these guys don't
yeah,
know.
they
They
remind
don't know
you.
that. Yeah, I was at the conference. I drank that much that night, and then you can't grasp the anxiety I had the next day going to the conference and the whole thing. What did I say? You're not remembering exactly what you said, who was around, that pair. I'm like, so when I think of drinking, I don't think of good times. I
Yeah.
think of the aftermath, the terror, the anxiety, just like, oh, did I do that? And I'm my worst critic, and our minds are our best asset or our worst enemy. And when you put it in that saying, it's your worst enemy because it just runs wild. You think of all the what if scenarios. What if I did this? What if I said this? If I told this person what I actually think of, in a professional setting or whatever. And and so you just start writing a story. And
Right.
it's not a good one in that situation. And I'm also when they tell those stories, I'm not thinking about the actual, hey, yeah, we were doing that. Then we went to this club, and I'm thinking of the day after. That's what it, you know.
Well, for me, I'm even thinking about what happened during. I mean, it wasn't even the aftermath. It was about what I did, who I was, what I said, how I
Yeah.
behaved. Yeah, it was, and sometimes you wouldn't remember and you wondered, right?
Those were the ones that are terrifying
Mm-hmm.
because you don't know. And then I write the worst story, the worst outcome in my mind, and I can't let it go. And ugh,
Yeah.
no, thank you. Don't want to experience that ever again.
Well, Steve, I really appreciate you coming in here and being vulnerable and really powerfully sharing how much community helps, how much truth helps, how much sharing helps, and bringing something into the darkness. I wanted to share one scripture that, I always find that whatever is truth can be found in the Bible. And Ecclesiastes 4:9-10 says, two are better than one. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. And the power of community, letting things sit in your head, like you just said, you're writing your own worst story, you're beating yourself up. There's no need to do that. And I want to invite our listeners to practice maybe some honesty in a safe place, in some place where you feel safe, even if it's with one person you can trust. Because when you can find that one safe place and you speak truth, it is so relieving. It is so healing, right, Steve? And we
Yeah.
remember the story the exact same. Nobody,
Yeah.
isn't that
It
crazy?
was a it was one of those moments. Yeah, it was big. And so, just with what you were saying in that scripture, two better than one. I still on that original 30-day challenge, I'm still on that group and I follow it because I see people in their journey, that day one, that day two. And you helped me get me out of that shell and get me on that path of sharing. Because I reached out to you, it's a moment of vulnerability. Okay, I don't know this lady. I'm like, and you responded back, and then we kind of we struck up a relationship, in this thing. And because it's hard to put yourself out there, and so I always like, and I remember when I was doing the 30-day, I'm like, hey, because they encourage you to be in there. It's like, okay, I'm gonna get on here and post. Um, and then people would respond and like never underestimate just a kind word. And I remember back then when someone saying, hey, great job, you can do this, that was a big thing. I don't know this person from the hole in the wall, and it's like that community. So I still get on there every now and then and I'll comment on someone's thing and or send them a private message, hey, keep your head up. And that's not because it's when you see so many people that have this problem and you personally have experienced, how horrible it is and you want to make a change, you know, you root for these people. You want to help them. Um,
Mm,
so I would encourage your listeners to try to make that connection because it's a powerful thing if you could help someone. To me, that makes me okay, well, maybe I went through this thing. It wasn't something I really liked, but if I can help another person, like I think of my inspector at 180 on his life, and it's like if I didn't do this and he continued on, it's just like things. If you can help someone get on the right path, I think that's what we're kind of supposed to do as human beings, right?
yeah, it's a
Um,
purpose-driven life.
and
What do you think?
especially in a Christian life, that's what we do here to serve and help other people. And to me, I really have nothing but gratitude for the people that have helped me along in this journey. And the fact that I could do it and be a positive influence and help someone else, maybe in that moment of weakness. I mean, sometimes a little thing, hey, I posted, I'm really struggling tonight. Da, da, da. Hey, hang in there. Da, da, da. That might help that person get through those next few hours, and tomorrow's a new day.
Exactly.
And I recently had that exchange with someone, and she's like tell she's a runner. And I said, hey, early on, I felt that way. It's natural. Hey, I'm 5 years alcohol free now. It gets better and this or that. And the light of a new day, this or that, because she was supposed to go, she made a post about supposed to go running day. I'm like, 10 minutes into that run tomorrow, if you don't drink tonight, you're going to be proud of yourself and you're going to have a great Saturday. It's a
No,
little message about, and she just put a little heart on it. Then the next day she's all, you're exactly right. Thank you.
mm,
Those little things. And but it takes, opening up and all that stuff. And which was, through that 90 days and meeting all the people that helped me progress on that journey. And like I said, I like sharing my story and helping other people because it's such a horrible thing. I don't like to see people where I was at. I because we know how horrible it is, and we know how better things could be if you struggle through that and grow and get through it. So,
Thank you, Steve. I really appreciate you sharing and being a light for so many others. And this is one of these areas. I think that's why, a lot of the 12-step programs are successful, even though that's not where I'm at. I know that's the reason for their success is because they love people through and they want to see people succeed to the other side. So. Thanks again for being on. Keep inspiring and keep
thanks
being
for having me.